worked in technology, and that's been a passion of mine since when I left university. And then I focused on technology in finance and banking, mainly because I was selling to those marketplaces and consulting to those markets. And then eventually, those markets became integrated into what's now called Fintech. And is basically starting in technology, delivering technology into various industries, and then eventually I specialized in technology in banking and insurance. And over the years, of which there have been many, it eventually became what's now called fintech, the integration of finance and technology, which is a really exciting space. And I've been in that space from before you were born. Run financial institutions, the traditional financial institutions, have no idea about technology. They really are specialists much more in risk and accounting. And so, because they don't have that dimension of technology, I feel that they fail the organization because they haven't got the understanding that is required for today's world, particularly as everything has now moved online and mobile. And that's the biggest challenge, which is how do you get the leadership to truly understand the implications and importance of technological change in their financial institution, particularly if they're an institution that's been around for more than 50 years and therefore has a lot of legacy. We've seen over the past year is artificial intelligence. And when you look at CHAT GPT, generative AI, artificial intelligence that actually can do multiple tasks. We get to a stage where, and I have this line for my presentations, we will no longer think about money because money thinks for us. And obviously that applies mainly to people who have bank accounts and financial services access. But even if you don't, we've got to the stage where the network is starting to include everyone. I remember talking a few years ago in the United Nations and said that everybody on Earth has access to financial services to trade, transact, thanks to the mobile telephone. And I saw quite a few people sort of laughing at that comment. But I think that's true. You know, I think we're at the stage where we can bring in artificial intelligence, transactions, trade, financial services to the mobile network so that anybody, anywhere, all the time, 24/7 can actually do something that is intelligent with money. It always had to be about banking or regulation, but these days it's whatever I find interesting because I've been doing it for 16 years every single day because I'm very boring. And it just basically is whatever I find interesting politically, economically, socially, technologically, because those four dimensions, politics, economics, society, and technology, are the things that determine our future. And I'm only interested in the future because that's the only thing that we can change. We can't change today or yesterday, we can change tomorrow. I guess not being someone in a big company. You know, I'm completely independent on my own, so I say it how I see it, and therefore unlike most people who work for corporations, who therefore have to have what they say is part of the corporate agenda, I don't have to do that. And I'm very lucky to be in that space. I guess the main lesson is that you need to not conform. You need to challenge and think. And in fact, I actually blogged about this this week, which is the Stockholm syndrome, which I'm sure everybody who's watching this has heard of it or knows it, but if you don't, Stockholm syndrome emerged from a bank heist in Sweden in the 1970s, where the hostages fell in love with the bank robber, so much so that they paid for his court fees and would not testify against him because they liked him so much. And it's a really interesting situation. And I think what happens is Stockholm syndrome in companies, which is people end up conforming to the corporate mantra and the corporate culture, and they stop thinking and they stop challenging because they're told not to by their management, and they fear losing their jobs. If you ever get into that situation of Stockholm syndrome, where you know that you're just doing what you're told to do and you stop thinking, leave. The answer to this question is a long one because there's like a million words or more. The gist of it is how to digitalize the financial industry. And it starts with the traditional firms need to reinvent their business models so that they're digital at the core and physical on top, whereas most traditional financial institutions are physical at their core with digital on top. And what I mean by that is, you know, the business model of banking is built for the distribution of paper through branches with buildings and humans, and they need to start thinking about the digital distribution of data through software and servers. So a completely different business model has to be reinvented. And then sprinkling on top of that is things like blockchain and the mobile network, financial inclusion and financial literacy and financial education, that are things that can be done really well by the technologies that we have today, leading into intelligent money, which is where we're moving next with the generative artificial intelligence tools that we have available right now. So the whole industry is being changed dramatically. And I always remember a comment from a friend of mine in India who said that banking was actually an experience where you would go to the branch with your family and have lunch by the branch and, you know, mix and talk to the community and society. Maybe that will be lost by digitalization. I hope it isn't. But you can't talk about these things generically, and every country has a different way of interpreting technology and a different speed at I started the Financial Services Club in 2004, and the whole idea is to network and to talk with each other. The same with Nordic Finance Innovation, which actually has just been reinventing itself to be more around Nordic innovation in general. And so the point of it is, we can say everything can be done on Zoom, but true human relationships are formed face to face. And however much we think that digital is great, it's only when humans meet face to face and network that we get real inspiration. And so the point of those networking forums was to do that. But again, focus completely on what's the future, where are we going next, how can we change tomorrow, because you can't change yesterday or today. focus of my TEDx was all around how can we use technology and finance to make the world a better place and to improve society. Because a lot of things in financial services have been accused of being socially useless and that financial institutions lost their moral compass. And the same is true in technology when you look at the big tech companies and the use of data and their abuse of data. So my focus is around, can technology and the big tech firms and the financial firms work together to improve the future for our kids? And that's obviously about the climate emergency, but from my side, I'm not that bothered about climate. I'm much more bothered about biodiversity. I'm really bothered about how much we're destroying the natural habitats of our um, partners on this planet, which is the animal kingdom and you know the oceans. And so I'm very much a fan of David Attenborough, and I kind of think if you could integrate technology and finance to focus on the biodiversity and climate issues, then in 2030 we won't just meet the Paris Accord, but we'll have a much better place to live in. The same thing, which is if I was creating a fintech startup, I wouldn't try and replace the banks because, to be honest, they're in a place that's not really replaceable, thanks to regulations, compliance, government, and laws. I would focus on fix the things that banks do badly or do the things that banks don't do. And one of my best examples of that is obviously Alipay, but also Paytm and Nubank in South America, which is they are now doing a lot of the things that banks do, but where they started is fixing the things that banks do badly or the things that the banks don't do at all. Financial inclusion, simple payments using mobile phone without a bank account, being able to transfer money very quickly and easily in real time, person to person, and then eventually building on that platform into credit and investments and others and insurance and other services. So the main advice is look for the things that banks do badly or that banks don't do at all, but don't try and start by replacing a bank because that's typically a too big a challenge and it's difficult to do and you'll probably fail. I think probably one of my favorite ones is called Stable, which is a guy who came from a farm and then, because he hated farming as he grew up, went to the city and worked for a big bank, and then realized that farmers didn't have access to hedging and risk, which is what he was dealing with in the City of London. So he took this idea back to the farm, which is why it's called Stable, because actually he created the company in the farmer's stable. And it's based, if essentially it's the risk of crop failure. So you can insure and hedge risk over your crops this season using a simple app. Swipe left for insurance cover, swipe right for I don't care. It's an amazing little company startup. Actually, say little, but it's now a unicorn. And that's the thing for me, that I could talk about many other startups out there like Stripe, Adyen, Klarna, Paytm. But what we're seeing is all of these companies that are growing into unicorns because they're doing things that are leveraging technology and inclusivity, which have never been done before. So there's many examples. At the moment, there's 30,000 startups in fintech around the world getting billions of dollars of investment. I think the last figure I saw was about 24 billion in the last year. So this is a vibrant space. the people who are achieving the greatest things, many of them came from backgrounds that were not privileged. You didn't have to go to Harvard or Oxford University to achieve what they've achieved. Some of them just came out of an idea that they created over a weekend. There's PayPal's Venmo is a good example. And yes, the guys who created Venmo were quite privileged. They went to an Ivy League college, but just over a weekend they thought, isn't it stupid that we can't pay each other using the network? Because at that time it was cash or check, and they had this idea which took off, and they've now become multimillionaires. So I think it really is down to, you've got to have a good idea, you've got to solve something that's not working, and you've got to do it with technology in a way that's elegant, as in code is the core of the USP, the unique selling point of what you do. And if you have that, then you can pitch that to any venture capitalist or private equity company or angel investor, and maybe tomorrow you will become a multimillionaire, or just someone who solves a problem that the planet needs solving. Generative AI and super intelligence and the singularity when we get there, where machines are actually more intelligent than me and you, is going to be amazing. I can't wait for it. I think it's going to be fantastic. And the reason why I say that is that in all the movies, they make it look scary. But the reality is, why would people create systems that will kill us? Why not create systems that will make us better?